Welcome to the Know It's Some podcast, bringing you the widest variety of conversational interviews for a well-rounded perspective on life. Because while it's true, nobody likes a know-it-all, it's also good to know it's some. Here's your host, Steve Platt.
That's right. Welcome back to the Know It's Some podcast. I'm your host, Steve Platt. And with this week's episode, we're going to take things back about a month. The news cycle moves on extraordinarily quickly. Everybody's focused on a new thing this week than they were last week. But during the extraction of folks from Kabul after the country fell, after the ANA, the Afghan National Army, fell so quickly to the Taliban, during that process, a lot of American citizens, green card holders, special immigrant visas, the interpreters that had served alongside us, many of them for years. I did 7 months in Afghanistan. A lot of my buddies did about the same, between 6 months, a year. These guys all served 2, 3 years, 4 years as interpreters. And a lot of them were kind of like left behind. They were not able to get into the airport. There were massive crowds. There was tear gas. There was the fear of suicide bombers. A lot of them had families with them, whether it be elderly parents or young children. And it was a very, very, very difficult situation. When you contacted your congressman or your senator, you were getting the runaround, you were getting pushback. So veterans themselves ended up springing into action, getting in contact with their former interpreters through apps like WhatsApp. They were able to help guide, pass information, put people in contact with people there in the airports. It was a very incredible effort, and one of the men who led this effort and got together with a number of veterans and active duty service members there in Kabul to save lives, to bring people into the airport and get them out of country, and is currently helping to save folks who are still there in Afghanistan, is former Marine. And I say former only because he's no longer active duty. There's no such thing as an ex-Marine, but formerly active duty, former gunnery sergeant Thomas Praxedes. Thomas is an incredible guy. It was an honor to speak with him, and he shared a little bit about how he got involved in this, the stuff that they were doing, the stuff that they encountered, the trials and obstacles that they faced, and then he shared a little bit about where you can go to help right now, which I'll tell you is Allied Extract. You're going to go to Allied Extract. And they're going to be able to help the folks that are still there left behind. But folks, this is a touching interview, very, very emotional at times for me. You won't hear me say very much because it's a very difficult topic for myself and for other Afghan veterans. But Thomas was kind enough to share what it was like from his experience. He worked long hours and overnight to try to help these folks over there. And a lot of it is documented on his Instagram. So I'm going to drop that handle in the show notes. He drops it at the end of the episode. But if you go to his Instagram, it's all right there in his stories. And you'll see kind of the stuff that was going on during that time in Kabul. And so, yeah, without any further ado, please welcome Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Praxedes. Where I'd like to start, Thomas, is basically, when did you first notice that something was going on within Afghanistan with the withdrawal? Like, when did you first hear that the Taliban was taking over as quickly as they were, that the Afghan National Army was falling as quickly as they did, and that there was a situation going on?
Yeah, I think whenever they announced it, maybe that was August 15th, when they said straight up, like, Kabul is being taken over already. It's fallen. And of course, at that time, I just retired from the Corps, and I'm thinking to myself, well, that sucks. That's pretty shitty. And I, obviously I wish it didn't happen, but it's happening. What can I do, right? So that's all I can do as a citizen. I think that's really all most civilians can do at this time, is just kind of be aware about it and just, give some their opinions. But it wasn't until a couple of days after that's when I kind of got the distress call from my interpreter, which then led me to go embark on this journey and have a personal hand in it.
So when abouts were you in Afghanistan yourself?
Yeah, so I was in Afghanistan in 2011 with 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. I was a platoon sergeant, and I
Mhm.
was in Sangin, Afghanistan, which is I relieved 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. That's usually what Sangin is known for. It has an infamous history of a lot of casualties, especially with 3-5.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The prayers for 3-5 have been shared on social media for years. People sometimes were reposting it, not even recognizing that this had been going on for a very long time.
Yes.
My question to you is, these interpreters, how big of a part of your time over there were they? I mean, obviously you were able to keep in contact, it seems, with at least one of them. So tell me a little bit about how important they were to the mission.
Yeah, Afghan interpreters or just interpreters in general. A lot of people think that our our mission in Afghanistan is to destroy Taliban. While that's a while that's a feel good goal, really the goal is to win hearts and minds and win the hearts and minds of the Afghan people. And the only way that you can really accomplish that goal is by having clear, direct, heartfelt communication with them, where the interpreter comes in and bridges that gap. So these Afghan interpreters, they come from many different provinces. They leave their jobs, their families, and they go to the most kinetic environments with Marines, soldiers, or even other international forces out there. And they embed with us. They live with us. They sleep with us. They know our hopes and dreams, and we know their hopes and dreams. They're practically Marines with us, just not having the title. And they proved a crucial role as far as bridging that gap between me and the Afghan individual. Just something as simple as asking them where the Taliban are, to asking them how their day is, or what can we do for them? What school can we build? Where are the farmers at? They were essential.
Yeah, part of what you guys were able to do over there enabled women to get back into the schools, back into the workplaces, enabled, all sorts of positivity in terms of change there. It wasn't just about bringing democracy in terms of elections, but it was just a way that people were able to live maybe a better quality of life in a safer environment. And I'm assuming that it was a pretty dangerous job for these interpreters to take even before the events of this last August. Did you get a sense that they were kind of putting themselves or their families on the line even before this August?
Oh yeah, I mean, even when we left there in 2011, our interpreters, moved. When we left there in 2011, these guys didn't even have a break. They served with multiple Marine units after us, and then some of them went on with the Army, some of them went on with the British, and going on to multiple different provinces. And then afterwards, they were done with their contract of serving in the hopes of potentially being maybe migrated to the United States, but they're stranded in Kabul. They maybe the SIV paperwork took long during this past 10 years, and they were being hunted down in Kabul. Still, a lot of these
Oh,
guys were. So
I
yeah,
wanted to bring that up. So the SIV program, the Special Immigrant Visas, a lot of folks, right, who are not familiar with how this is working out for the Afghanis, they go, hey, look, the State Department put out warnings to the Americans to leave for months and months and months. And, why were these interpreters still there? They don't understand the SIV process. How long was this SIV process taking for some of these guys?
one of our guys who was very on top of it. It took him. I had him in 2011. We wrote him a ton of letters of recommendations. At that point, that's all we can do is write letters of recommendations and make sure he has them.
Right.
And it took him about 5 years, and he was on top of his stuff. Now, there's
Yeah.
some interpreters that we had who were, the human factor kicks in. They were a little bit lazy, and they took their time, and they found themselves stranded this time. We kind of harped on something like, why didn't you get this done sooner? But in essence, like, it took a long time. It's
Yeah,
not quick.
that's what I was hearing is that it's at least a 2-year process with biometric screenings, and you need recommendations from your superiors when you were serving. And then I
That's
think
it.
they were saying you have to have served what, like 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that we gave, who's in America now, he did like 3 years of service, and it still took him 5 years to get an SIV approved.
That's crazy. You know, I think about my time over there. I was there 7 months, and I also didn't have my family there where the Taliban could threaten them. These guys served a lot longer than any of us, and it seems like we've kind of abandoned them in a lot of ways. So so take me back to this August. You realize that something's wrong. You realize that people are not going to be able to get out as quickly as we had hoped, and the Taliban takes control of the city. Who reached out to who, and how did this whole thing with you and your involvement get started?
Yeah, so it was Sunday night, midnight. Retired Marine. I'm just kind of watching TV. I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna go to bed, and at 12:30, I get a distress call on Facebook Messenger by one of my interpreters, and he's like, "Gunny, I need help." I'm like, "What's going on?" And obviously, I know about the whole Afghan thing that's happening, and he just tells me I'm being hunted down. The airport is near me. I need somebody to help me out. And at that point, my wife is next to me, and she's hearing everything on speakerphone. And, I'm hearing the chaos that's happening next to him. And at that point, yeah, it becomes just me diving in full force, just routing him. FaceTime, my wife saw everything on FaceTime, heard it all the gunfire, kids choking on gas, all that stuff. They heard it.
That's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking stuff. It seems like you gathered a pretty tight-knit group of fellow veterans, maybe some active duty folks in this effort, this concerted effort to try to get people out. What was that like? Did you initially reach out to one person? Because you ended up having like a tight-knit group. Did you reach out to one person in particular to start with?
Yeah. So my first one was before I reached out to Nick and Hannah and everybody else. I reached out to a buddy that I knew that was in Kabul, and he was at one of the battalions there, and we served together. We were lance corporals together in the battle for Fallujah in 2004. So I reached out to him and I said, "Hey man, I have an interpreter that's stranded. Where are you at? And can we make link up, and can you just pull him over the wire?" And he tells me, "Yeah, send him to Abbey-Gate," and that's it. And then Nick and Hannah tells me about their friend that has an interpreter that's stranded, and we have another friend that has an interpreter stranded. So at that point, I start leveraging my contacts first with them, like, "Hey, let's just all create a group chat, and maybe they can go to Abbey-Gate with my guy, and we could just push him down together." And the rest is history at that point.
So then at that point, you and your group were in contact with multiple different interpreters, their families, trying to get them into the airport. I don't know that the average listener has any idea how hard it is, or even with the right paperwork, even if your name's on a flight manifest, to get inside that airport during those final days. Can you share a little bit about what those groups were facing when they headed to the airport? So that now you've gotten in touch with them, you say, "Hey, look, you got to get to Abbey-Gate." What is that journey like for them?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, like in the beginning, a lot of veterans even reached out to me, like, what can you possibly do being stateside? So there was already a question, like, what are we doing? So at this point, it's like, okay, we gather them all together, and this is and we're having Zoom meetings, mind you, like me, Hannah, and our veteran group, and we're telling them, gather at this spot, make introduction. You guys are going to be a team at that point. And then from there, we're literally guiding them utilizing Taliban checkpoint maps, Google Earth, and FaceTime, and saying, turn left, turn right, go forward. And we're literally giving them directions. And in between, when we don't have contact with them, we're prepping all their paperwork. We're telling them, give me your passport IDs. We're scanning them. We're sending them to various NGOs out there. We're creating flight manifests. We're pretty much doing all the administrative tasks that they should have done. We're doing it for them on top of guiding them. So these guys are not moving unless we tell them to move. So every direction we give them has to be pretty, it's got to be accurate, because in the first days we messed up as a team, as a group of veterans. We made them push through a gate. It was North Gate specifically, and it was hostile. and they were like, "Nah, this is not it," and we're like, "You got to go," and they got gas at that gate, and
Mhm.
it was rough. So at that point, we had to kind of pivot and move around. So yeah.
These guys, they have to have the right documentation on them, but also, that almost puts a target on their back should the Taliban decide to be aggressive or retaliatory, right? So it's a fine
Yeah.
for them to balance. When you finally did get some of these guys to the right gate, tell me a little bit about some of the guys that were able to get in to the airport, and then tell me a little bit about the ones that were not able to get in.
So we had our original 13 that we were always pushing, but in the process, as we were broadcasting this through Instagram, a lot of other families reached out to us, and a lot of other people reached out and wanted to see if we can provide assistance as well. And ironically, we were able to get some of their guys out of the country rather than our own 13, which, unfortunately, they're kind of still stranded there. Um, but those guys that were able to get in, or get into the airport, it was hard for them. Again, getting hit by, they'd have to go through the outer ring, which was manned by the Taliban, and usually there they would get hit, butt stocked in the head, maybe harassed a little bit. And when they got inside, the inner part of the inner part of the gate, or at least where the crowd's at, they risked, gunfire. They risked being suffocated. Heat exhaustion. I think one child broke his legs. Tear gas being
Mm,
utilized.
awful.
So it was rough. And mind you, these are not them telling us. We're watching this on Facebook. Have the phones on them, and we're seeing it on very like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger.
And you're like helpless to really do anything at that point.
Helpless. Yeah, I got a video on my Instagram, me telling him to push through it, like push people out of the way. It sucks. I'm telling him to push his own fellow countrymen out of the way, but at this point, it's like, well, there's a difference between you and him. You have a contact, he doesn't. It's kind of like you got to survive. And
Right.
I'm not naive to the fact too, and I've heard this multiple times that there are Afghans there who they think this is a free ticket for them to get to America. So there's a lot there that really did not serve. They're just really trying to push the gates too.
Yeah, and you can't really blame. They're trying to do what
You
they
can't.
can for themselves and their families too.
I totally understand.
Let me ask you this: so with all that was going on, all these people trying to push into the airport, get into the airport, you were able to help out some of those folks, but there were also a lot of grifters I saw, folks not like yourself, not like the roamers, who were trying to take advantage of the situation. I did see somebody was charging an outrageous amount of money um, to
Uh-huh.
try to bring people out. Other people said that they could help, but really they were wasting time and resources. They weren't really able to help any more than the next guy. They said that
Yeah.
they had special capabilities and connections, and did not. Did you? Was there any of that you saw? Anybody trying to kind of take advantage of a terrible situation? Because I did see some of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't. So we did get a couple quotes from some private contracting units out there that were charging up to maybe $800 for a full bus of 10 they'll allow, or 14,000 per person to get them out of the country, and through different avenues. And I really can't talk too much on those guys. I mean, at least they were up front with us, like they were telling us the price. But then what I really had a problem was at the very beginning of this, and I know Hannah has posted it, and I've posted it plenty of times. Was an Instagram account named Quentin Quarantino that had like a 800K following, and he raised $7.6 million on GoFundMe called Operation Flyaway.
Mm.
And in the beginning stages of that, prior to him launching his campaign, I reached out to him. We got in contact during WhatsApp, and I gave him my story. I'm like, look, I got women and children in my group. I need help. And we went back and forth for 48 hours. Him and his staff giving me the damn runaround as far as send me this, send me that, just costing me more hours, more manpower. Just playing the game with the Afghan interpreters. Like at one point, like this is how they really bogged me down. One of my Afghan interpreters, he sent me an unclear picture. I'm like, pull over to the side of the road, take a picture of your passport, and send it to me. I don't need to bother a father who's trying to push his women and children through gunfire to do that. And unfortunately, from what I hear and what I'm seeing on his Instagram account, 7 million, they only got out 350, and then there's not even proof about it. He's getting blasted by everybody, like show proof, show receipts, and I'm still questioning him. So.
Well, on a lighter note, there is a story that I've seen Hannah post. Hoping maybe you could share some light on it. The story of the red bag. Is that one that you could share with us?
Yeah. We have one of our interpreters. So I had my contact on the ground, and he practically told me, he's like, look, when there's a ton of people here, we need them to wear something that is a little bit bright that we can identify them. So at the time, we had all these guys we were FaceTiming all of our interpreters, and we're like, show me what you're all wearing right now. It's kind of like we, as Marines, we're just inspecting what they're wearing, because we were treating them like Marines. We're like, you better make sure you wear tennis shoes this time. Do not wear sandals. Make sure you have water. Make sure your cell phones are charged. And at one point, we're like, okay, none of y'all are wearing the same thing. And then one of our interpreters, he's like, I have this red bag. I'm like, that's perfect. I want you to put that red bag in the air as you're moving to the Marines. But we also needed him to kind of be very careful, because we didn't want him to make it look like he was a suicide bomber with the bag. But it was like, oh shit, how do we make this happen? And at one point, our Marines actually saw the damn red bag. They're like, we see him with the red bag. I'm like, grab him. But there was so much people in between, like 10 meters from 10 meters from where they're at to where the Marines are at. That's like a mile away with all the people there.
Right.
So they weren't successfully able to grab him at that time, because the Marines had strict rules of engagements. They could not leave that wire. That was very hard for them.
Yeah. So I'd seen that, and then I'd also seen, and I don't know if these are confirmed reports or not, but French troops or British troops, other countries allowing their people to leave and go and extract folks from within Kabul. So it was very frustrating to hear that we had American citizens, American green card holders, SIV interpreters that had served many years alongside us, stranded in the city and not able to get into the airport. Just kind of frustrating. And then, of course, the most frustrating thing of all was, even with the advanced intelligence, advanced notice, the suicide bomber, the attack that was able to get past Taliban checkpoints somehow and attack Abbey Gate. You mentioned Abbey Gate earlier. It was a main gate for a lot of these SIV folks. Could you tell me, what was it like to hear the news of what happened there? What was it like to learn about the attack?
Yeah, it's horrible. It was really, really sad to hear that. I think for me, why it really struck home was, I joined in 2003, and these young men and women, they were, a lot of them, they were born into this war, and they were babies when this war was happening. And to kind of be an older man now, I'm not that old, but damn, 36, and seeing them close the chapter of what we started, it kind of sucks. It's not that kind of, it really sucks to hear them, or to see that they died in a war that they were born that they were born in and they grew up in. And I actually went to go see the funeral of Doc Soviek, who was killed. I flew all the way to Ohio to see it, and it was for me. I still ask myself why I went to see that. I never knew Doc, but I think for me, it's like I needed to see sacrifice from a civilian's eyes, because I'm now a civilian. And
right.
It was really hard. It's really heart wrenching to hear this, or to see that. So I felt like shit, man. It sucked. It really sucked.
Look, any life loss is gonna hurt. Seeing our own people lose their lives, and by our own people, I mean, fellow service members, right? That hurts for you and I as veterans. It hurts for anybody in the nation watching. And then when you learn their individual stories, like each one of their stories, one of them just had a kid born. The widow gave birth at Camp Pendleton,
Yeah.
I believe, not long ago.
Yeah.
And that child will never know their father. And, it's just really, really, really difficult to hear each and every individual story. And yet I felt like we almost owed it to them that the nation knows who these heroes are. You know what I mean? And so I'm glad that the stories are being shared and that we are putting a face and a name and a story instead of just saying 13 servicemen. You know what I mean? Instead of just putting a number on it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I felt helpless. I watched what you guys were able to do in getting several of these folks over the wall. It seems like they had to go through like a sewage canal and everything to get pulled over the wall. Truly incredible stuff. For those that are still stuck there in Afghanistan, it's not over. It seems like you've been able to help out and inform people of like almost like an underground railroad kind of a thing going on over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've migrated them to different areas out of Kabul, and but honestly, it can only hold for so long. Like it's the neighboring countries are at max capacity. Department of State is still making things a bit harder for some of these guys. So it's all now about how long can we keep them in these safe houses with the limited amount of money that we have. I mean, some of this money, a lot of us are not even raising it. I know for me and some of the guys, we've given out $200 of our own money to these guys. I've personally given $200, and that lasts them exactly 5 to 8 days for 3 families.
Wow.
And it can only hold out for so long.
So for the listeners that are hearing this interview, hearing this episode, that want to help these people who served alongside us, in many ways kept us alive for years. What can these people do? I mean, what can they really do at home, seeing this on the news, hearing this on the podcast? I mean, what is there for folks to do?
Yeah, good question, huh?
Yeah,
I think for any American, I guess one, just staying informed. That's one, never forgetting about it. And then obviously writing. You can write the congressman, the senator, all that other stuff. Posting it on Instagram and Facebook. That always helps. You can also find credible NGOs. I know the one that I trust is Allied Extract. I don't run that. I'm part of it, but I don't run it. I know a lot of the funds that go there go directly to aiding these guys out. But it's rough. That's really it,
Yeah. So Allied Extract,
Power Smart. Yeah, Allied Extract.
I'm gonna go ahead and put their information in the show notes. If you're listening to this and you want to help Allied Extract, that's probably your best bet. Of course, you could always write or call your congressman, your senator. We did a lot of that, right, through the withdrawal and got a lot of lip service, as you would expect. So I think a more direct way to help these people is to help keep them alive until there's an avenue of exit. And to do that, definitely get in touch with Allied Extract. Thomas, a lot of what you guys were able to do is still on your Instagram in stories that you have saved there. The Afghan Extract stories that you have there. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is Praxedes09. That's Praxedes09. That's my Instagram, and then you can just add me on Facebook, Thomas Praxedes. All my stuff's all public. Y'all can watch it.
Roger that. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the show notes as well, your Instagram handle. I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of share your story with us. It was very powerful to watch you and the other veterans jump into action when this all went down. And, while I'm sorry that we weren't able to get everybody out, I know that there are a number of folks that are very grateful that you were able to get them out. And, just thank you so much for doing something, for not just sitting by as a bystander.
Yeah, man. You too for providing awareness. It's always big. And I talked to some of the Marines there, and some of these guys are combat hardened guys, and they reached out to me when I was talking to them. They said, "Look, man, I'm messed up from this one. He's like, this is the first time I've seen babies thrown over the sea wire, and they fall short, and they fall in the sea wire and they die. I'm talking sea wire that is filled with babies, and they're baking in the sun, or they're floating in the canals. And that was very hard for me to hear that. I fought in Fallujah, I fought in Sangin, been wounded twice, seen all this shit. But I think seeing a child get hurt or killed, I don't know. So a lot of our veterans that coming back from this shit, they're gonna need a lot of support. And I'd say for a lot of the veterans that are maybe hearing this, and I get how fast America moves when we sometimes tend to forget things, and that's one of those things where we can't take it too personal. And I say that to every veteran that serves. Like, sometimes it's not the American population will move on, and us veterans, it's kind of in our history to kind of be left behind, and it doesn't make it right, but we're built for things like this, and as long as we don't forget and we continue to put our foot forward in something like this, we'll still make a difference.
No, absolutely. And I think on top of that, while America does kind of move on, you're still surrounded by your brothers and sisters that you served with, to the left and right of you, and people kind of forget that because life changes, people move, phone numbers change, but in reality, I know that a number of the guys I served with, I could call them up right now and they'd pick up the phone. You know what I mean? Like, just because you go on with your life doesn't mean that there aren't people there for you. So if you did serve in Afghanistan and this has hit you kind of hard, just know that you're not alone. You know what I mean? Like, there are people out there that would be willing to not just listen to you, but they probably feel the same way you do.
Yep.
So,
right.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And it's a true pleasure, Thomas, sincerely and truly.
All right. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
And that'll do it for another episode of the Know It Some podcast. My thanks again to this week's guest, Thomas Praxedes, for your time and for sharing that story with us. I think it's important for people to know what happened in Afghanistan and what's going on over there right now. Folks, if you have not done so already, please head on over to Podchaser or on Apple and iTunes and leave us a 5-star ranking and review. It's the very best way to support the show, and it helps us to continue to book interesting guests every single week. Another great way to support the show would be to follow us on your favorite social media platform. We are at Know It Some Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. We are there at Know It Some Pod, and you could always send us your feedback by sending us a direct message there or by writing us an email. Our address is knowitsomepod@gmail.com. Our guest next week, barring any schedule interruptions, will be former Miami-Dade Police Director Juan Perez, and we are very excited to bring you that interview. I appreciate everybody's support, and we'll see you next week.